A true pleasure and honor today to speak with Roger Dow, the President and CEO of U.S. Travel. Amazing career. I'm going to speak a little bit about how Roger got into the industry as a lifeguard, and then moving on with everything he's done in his life and what he's doing today for our industry, his prediction for the future, what's happening now, what we could expect from the Hill. Very interesting conversation. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Meetings podcast. I'm Eric Rosenberg, and today I cannot believe that I managed to have his time for 30, 40 minutes. We had the immense pleasure to speak with Roger Dow, who's the President and CEO of U.S. Travel. Amazing career in our industry, an amazing person. Roger, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Hey, Eric, great being with you. I'm sorry to say I'm not as amazing as you might say to your listeners, but we're good friends.
We're good friends, and you are truly amazing and a big supporter, and thank you for everything you're doing. What I don't think people know about you is how you actually start in the industry, because we always ask people, how do you go into the industry? Or I came there by coincidence. That actually you start working as a lifeguard.
Yeah, and I think back when I started this industry, my career is probably similar to most, where people stumbled into the industry with not quite any idea that they were going to end up in this industry, part-time job or whatever. So when I was in college a long time ago, I was looking for a job as a lifeguard, and I could not find one. I had just gotten lifeguard training, and all the pools had hired their lifeguard. And my mom said, there's a hotel opening near where we live. Maybe they need a lifeguard. So I went over and I applied for this lifeguard job, and I got it. And the hotel was called Marriott. And this was their sixth hotel. So they only had 5 hotels, and they were opening their sixth. So I spent a year or actually 3 summers as a lifeguard. And then when I got out of college, I was looking for a job, having trouble getting a job. And the general manager of that hotel said, why don't you stay with Marriott? You've done a good job at the pool, and this is going to be a really great company. Someday they could have 100 hotels. And I said, 100? And he said, that's possible. So I signed up with Marriott when they had, at that time, probably about 12 hotels, hoping that someday they might have 100 hotels. And, of course, now we're looking at 7,000.
Wow. And you ended up later on with your career as a senior VP. You were the head of sales and the global and the field for the entire company. Yeah,
my career, like many folks in the industry, started with many jobs on properties. So I was a salesperson, a director of sales and marketing, probably about 8 or 10 properties for the first 12, 14 years of my career. Then I moved to Marriott's corporate headquarters, which was just outside D.C., in a place called Bethesda, Maryland. And at the time, this was 1983, I headed up marketing. And at that time, started the first frequency or loyalty program in the hotel business. The airlines had a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And the first affinity credit card. I did that for about 10 years and then moved on to head up global sales, which I really love, being part of the sales profession. And Marriott had about 10,000 salespeople around the world that all somehow worked together with me, obviously not reporting to me, but it was just a phenomenal organization worldwide of people selling everything from meetings to conventions to global travel to corporate travel to national accounts, etc.
That's amazing. When you are in that role, how do you decide where you spend your time, which property you're going to visit, which country you're going to visit?
Well, it's where the priorities are, obviously. Yeah. And for me, it also where people invite you to. So in other words, when you're in a role like that, you'll get the folks from whether it be Europe or the Middle East or even Asia, although at that time we didn't have as much in Asia as Marriott has now, mm-hmm. Or the U.S. So I basically go where their priorities were, but also driven by where events are. So you and I got to know each other through various industry events. So whether it be an ASAE or an IPW or a World Travel Market or on and on. So It's a combination of Marriott events, Marriott priorities, and industry events. That's what really dictated where I would go.
Amazing. And another thing that I'm not sure everybody knows about you, and for which I had the utmost respect. And as you know, my parents were hidden children during the war and were liberated by the U.S. Army. And later on, obviously not at that time, but later on, you were also in the U.S. Army, and you have been decorated with the bronze medal.
Well, yeah, I was. I'd have to tell you that unlike Marriott, where I wanted to go there, Army was not where I really wanted to go. I was drafted, so I had no choice but to go in the Army, and that was during the Vietnam War. And I really was trying the best I could not to go to Vietnam in any way I could live with. So I would sign up for any course that I could. So I was a 101st Airborne Ranger jumping out of airplanes. I became a staff sergeant. But sooner or later, the calendar caught up with me, and I got sent to Vietnam. Spent a year in Vietnam. I was a what they call long-range reconnaissance. They drop 6 of us out in the field, and we try and be like intelligence for what was going on around the area. And I spent a year in Vietnam, and I was very lucky to come back in one piece. And it was perhaps one of the more learning experiences I've had from leadership and how people work together. There's nothing like being with a whole bunch of people that each depend on each other's lives and decide how you're going to get things done together.
I'm sure. And I'm sure you've been using everything you learned there in your business career, managing people and leading people.
Well, these days, it seems like Vietnam was a walk in the park compared to what the industry is going through right now. No. But no, there's a lot of lessons. You know, you learn. One thing I learned in the military was I thought because I was a sergeant, I was in charge. And I recall the first time I was out in the field, I made a list of who was going to stay up and be on watch during the night. And I wasn't on the list because I was a sergeant. And one of the fellows came and said, "Sarge, where are you on the list?" And I said, "Well, I'm the sergeant. Do I need to be on the list?" He said, "Oh, yeah, you really do." And I could tell by the look in his eye, I really did. So I said, "Okay, give me the 2 a.m. watch." And I learned that's one of the great lessons as a leader. You don't tell people what to do. You do it with them.
Exactly. It's not let's go. It's follow me.
Yeah. Amen.
Yes. So you had this tremendous career with Marriott. And then how did you do this transition to U.S. travel? And how did that happen? And what were the questions you were asking yourself at that moment in terms of career? Because I'm sure everybody today is wondering about what is the next move in their career, whether they have their own company or they're working for somebody else. So you're very successful. You're the head of global sales. How does this transition happen? And what type of question did you ask yourself before accepting the role of President CEO of U.S. Travel?
Eric, I had been with Marriott 34 years. And quite frankly, it's the old thing. Marriott had been very good to me. I had grown up and through a lot of growth. And I actually was toying with retiring and deciding, do I play golf or what would I do? And the gentleman who headed up what was called the Travel Industry Association, with now U.S. Travel, was retiring. And I got a call from a friend saying, "You ought to do this job." I said, "Why?" I loved Marriott, what I was doing, and the headhunter was handling it. It almost tempted me with saying, "But what if you could have an impact and change an industry?" I said, "Oh, don't be so foolish." He said, "No." He said, "The industry needs to come together, and they're not together, and they're looking for somebody that has great depth in the industry, but can pull the industry together with a common voice." That was interesting to me, and I said, "All right, I'll tell you what, I'll do it for 5 years, but then I'm going to retire and go play golf." Well, that was 15 years ago, Eric. So I'm still working on that 5 years, but one of these days I'll be playing the golf.
And how's your golf?
Horrible because of all this. It's horrible, but I still enjoy getting out there with folks. In fact, this weekend this week, my wife and I are joining some folks in a place called Bald Island, North Carolina, and we're gonna play a little golf. And I haven't played in months, so I'm gonna make a bit of a fool of myself. But the thing I love about golf is you spend 4 hours with some really good friends, and you're much better friends afterwards because you've seen each other do some pretty amazing things, but mostly some pretty awful things. And you realize that nobody has a great golf game, and but the camaraderie is really fun, really phenomenal.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of common friends. I don't play golf much, but they love to play with me because for whatever reason, their game looks much better when I'm playing with them. So that's something.
Well, you and I should play with them together, and they would really be happy.
So you've been heading the U.S. travel now for 15 years, and you've seen different crises. I remember when it was the beginning also after the subprime crisis and also the Meeting Means Business Coalition and all those different organizations. Where do you see our industry today, and what is different from what you've experienced, what you've seen in the past?
Well, we've been through a lot of crisis. I go back to the Gulf Wars, and then following the Gulf Wars, September 11th.
Yeah.
Then the financial Great Recession of 2008. Then meetings getting beat up on as at that time of saying anyone that went to a meeting or a resort was probably a bad person. They shouldn't be doing that. And then now this most recent crisis, this pandemic. And looking back at all of them, I have to say what we're going through now as an industry is probably 10 times more than any one of them. I think of September 11th. It was horrific. A horrific thing happened. But everyone understood it. It was 4 planes hitting 3 buildings in a field with many horribly people dying. But it was an event that you knew about and you could define. Mm-hmm. This is hard to define and to understand what's going on and all the conflicting stories you're hearing. And that's one of the challenges. And it wasn't just in New York and Washington and Pennsylvania, but this is all over the world. Mm-hmm. So this by far is the most pervasive thing that we've ever faced as an industry.
And if I'm not mistaken, 40% of all the people lost their job this time are from our industry.
Yeah, when you look at the industry, we're a very labor-intensive industry, so we have 10 or 11% of all the people that have a job in America are in our industry. But yet, as you said, 40% of those out of work are from our industry. So that's 4 times what our percentage is. And an even worse number, to put it in perspective, is of the 16 million people in the travel industry, 8 million through May were unemployed. That's 51%. During the Great Depression, the worst year of the Great Depression was 1933, and that was 25.5%. So when I talk to people on Capitol Hill and senators and congressmen, the numbers of millions and trillions and billions go right over the head. When I say this is 2 times worse than the Depression, that gets their attention, and you begin to understand how difficult this has been on our industry.
2 times, and many more human beings living in the country than there were in 1933.
Well, it's a very good point when you think about the sheer numbers. And it's people, sometimes when industries have trouble, it's in one particular area. So if oil business is down, it might be in Texas and places like that. If technology is down, it might be the Northeast and the West and Austin, Texas, and the Washington corridor. Mm-hmm. Travel is everywhere, whether it's Fargo or Fort Lauderdale, whether it's Santa Barbara or St. Louis. The bottom line is travel is everywhere, and it affects so many people. And the other thing that people don't realize is they think of the travel industry, the meetings business, of the large hotel companies, the airlines, Disney, the big names. But really, the travel industry is 83% small businesses. Mm-hmm. It's people who can barely hang on, that have bet the life on this industry. Yep. And this has been one of the most devastating things. And many of them, sadly, may not be back or may not be able to keep their business going.
And by the way, small business, we are the one who are basically providing the majority of the jobs in general, not only in the U.S., but all over the world. It's always small business that are the good sign of the economy.
There's no question about it. It's the small businesses. It's I think of the hotels like HOA, which is the Asian American Hotel Owners Association, and many folks that are Asian own whether it be the Motel 6s, the Choice Hotels, the very Howard Johnson's, Ramadas, and own them. And these are people that have basically bet everything they have. They bought one motel, then they buy a second, and the family's often involved, and a third, and then you stand on the back dock of a hotel, and you realize very quickly that small business, the people who deliver the signs, the people, the flowers, the bakers, all the people that come in the back door of a hotel are all these small businesses that all come together to put on a meeting or an event.
Yeah. And what we've seen in the past is actually after a crisis like this, a lot of companies have laid off people, but there's also an increase in the number of small business owners and entrepreneurs that are actually starting their own business to help those organizations to put meetings together. Do you see that happening in the near future here?
I think so. I think it's out of every crisis comes opportunity. And I think there are people who are really going to look at what is going on. Some people are going to buy other businesses. They're going to see some business that might have gone out of business and fill that void. There's a whole new set of businesses that never existed before. This whole health safety area. Mm-hmm. Every hotel and every convention center is going to have a health safety officer. We had security people. We never had health safety officers. And there's going to be all sorts of people involved in protocols, the people from sanitation systems. We're fortunate at this time that technology is so far advanced, but you're going to see biometrics. You're going to see contactless systems of check-in, check-out, getting into your rooms, all that. All these things are going to come out of this at a much faster pace than they may have been going already.
Like the touchless technology and stuff like that?
There's no question about it. I mean, I'm seeing so many different ways, and the changes, and many are temporary, but a lot of the changes we're seeing going on right now are here for good. I wish I had invested in plexiglass years ago. I would be a very wealthy person with all the plexiglass today. But I also think you're going to see a whole lot of protocols, a whole lot of changes in how we do business, and a demand by consumers on health and safety. It's just like after September 11th, in reality, a plane, as sad as it was, has not hit a building in 19 years. But yet the layers of security have gone bigger and bigger and more. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. We're facing an era now in travel and hospitality where health and safety security is going to be what cybersecurity was to technology going forward.
Oh, that's a very good point. Now, I know you've been working hard on the Hill to get support for our industry, and you had amazing results. But do you think that's going to be another wave of support coming? And I'm talking also different verticals, if you want. The small business, hopefully for sure, but also the hotels, the airlines. Airlines seems to be saying that now if they don't get the support, that might be a disaster, which is already extremely hard right now. The cruise industry. What do you think we can be hoping in the future? And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you're obviously in touch with the people on the Hill.
Well, I recall back, I work in Washington, D.C., and I lived in Florida, in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I commute back and forth. One of the last times I was in Washington for several months was on March the 17th. And on March the 17th, I was sitting down with President Trump, Vice President Pence, and Wilbur Ross, the head of the Commerce Department, with 7 or 8 CEOs from the lodging business, talking about how bad this was going to be and the need for Congress and the administration to act. And that followed with the CARES Act and the several areas for both relief and protection of our industry.
Right.
But we've now gotten caught up in politics. First, one of the problems with the CARES Act is one group was left out and for the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. And that's the DMOs, the destination marketing organizations. They were left out of this. And the reason that happened is there was one politician that when the whole payroll protection program was being put together said, wait a minute, I don't want to pay a lot of lobbyists and firms called 501c6, a little technical, but destination marketing organizations are 501c6s, as are lobbying organizations, as are museums, as is Broadway. So in that one stroke of a pen, all the people were cut out from destination marketing organizations. And we've been trying to get that fixed because these people have not been able to hang on. They've had to lay off a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we thought there would be a third phase recently. The House had their version called the HEROES Act. The Senate had their version called the HEALS Act. And it's sad that they couldn't bring them together. And this politics is basically taken over what needs to be done. So you've got an industry here that is basically, going down for the count in many ways. The airlines, and we're hopeful by October 1st, that's when the government shuts down being funded. So usually what happens is there's something passed called a continuing resolution, which means the government will go on and be funded. You've heard about the government shutdowns and all. It's all around this. So the airlines are trying to get, their part in this as are we. But it is just very frustrating to me to watch politicians on either side of the aisle to basically hold an industry and an economy hostage to political reasons. And this is a time when I think politicians should come together, Republican, Democrat, whatever, say what's good for the people. Let's bicker about other things, but let's get what's good for the people. So right now, the industry's kind of hanging out there. So we need a lot of pressure on Congress from every possible way to say, come on, get something done. Worry about all the other politics later, but don't let this industry go under. It's the lifeblood of our economy.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, we've seen it as well during all this stay-at-home phase. People cannot live without each other. People cannot live without entertainment. People cannot live without the theater, the music, the all the activities that you usually have, including for those politicians. Now, I suppose the fact that we are in an election year is also on their mind. But at the end of the day, the thousands of people that are working in hotels, in airlines, in live entertainment, in meetings, and we really need those to be supported and to come back. We know we're going to come back, but sooner rather than later, don't you think?
Oh, I think so. It used to be 50 years ago, 60 years ago, the saying was, as goes General Motors, goes the U.S. economy. In other words, everything, if General Motors was healthy, the U.S. economy was healthy. I think in recent years that has changed to as goes the travel industry, goes the economy. And it's the front door to economic development. You just don't realize how many things we touch. When people come to a sales conference or a meeting, they learn best practices. It's really adult education. Once you get out of college, you're not going to learn much more unless you're going to meetings and conventions and learning. It's where commerce gets done. It's where someone decides where they're going to buy a second home or relocate, where they're going to put their company, what school they're going to go to. And you think of everything in our economy that's tied back to someone first making a trip or going to a meeting or a convention first and what follows. So as goes the travel industry, I maintain, goes the U.S. economy. And we've done a lot of research, and fully 75% of Americans do believe until the travel industry comes back, the U.S. economy cannot come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating to me as well, if you look at the research for healthcare and look at the vaccine, and all those research are happening also because people are exchanging information, because they're sharing, they're coming together. And that's something that is happening as well with meetings. So we're looking at a part of online for sure that's going to stay. Do you think that the people can live without face-to-face?
I really don't. Face-to-face. It's nice that we're doing this via podcast. In fact, I can see you because we're virtual, but listeners have to go through listening. It's okay virtual, but when you and I are together smoking a cigar, talking about business, it's a lot more different than looking at a flat screen. You can't get things done without face-to-face, and I really think this has been a weak substitute. We've gotten better at it. I mean, I think we're pretty good at Zooming and GoToMeetings and all that. And I think a silver lining is going to come out of that, Eric. I think you're going to see a big extension of the meeting itself. The people that really need to and want to be there are going to be there. They cannot function just listening to a speaker or think of a meeting for a whole day or 2 days virtually. It'll give you a headache. You can't do it. You need that interaction, the breaks and all that. But I think what it's going to do, it's going to really enable us to extend an audience. I mean, I've been on virtual meetings with 5 to 15,000 people. Just think of the meeting that might have the 200 or 300 folks there live, and the general session going out to 15 or 20,000 people around the world. And I think we're going to learn that we're going to extend face-to-face, but face-to-face is still critical. Those that want to make a difference, those that want to really get the most out of it, are going to be there in person. Those that can watch and can learn a little bit, but it's not going to match being there in person.
Fully agree. And just thinking about what you were saying about negotiation. You don't negotiate on the Hill via Zoom the same way that you do when you're in the room, when you see the nonverbal of people, when you see their reaction and who they're talking to. You don't get the same results if you have to do it online.
There's no question about it. And it's the reason for us to get together face-to-face is, it's body language, it's interaction, it's what goes on between the sentences, it's what goes on. I always say at a meeting, a lot happens in the general session, but the real meeting and the learning takes place during the coffee breaks, during the luncheons, during the social things. I mean, I can't tell you how many people that I've built relationships that, I knew by email, but became great business and friends of mine after meeting them face to face. You and I have a relationship that started face to face.
Yes.
If we had just done this for past 5 years, been nice, but we wouldn't have the relationship we have today.
No, absolutely. Now, to shift about Roger Dow and how you sleep at night, I always have this quote that years ago, Jack Welch, when was at the helm of GE, and he was asked by a journalist, Mr. Welch, with all your responsibilities, how do you sleep at night? And his answer was, I sleep like a baby. I wake up every 3 hours and start screaming. So how does Roger Dow sleep today, and what's on your mind for the future?
Well, I actually do sleep pretty well sometimes, although I will say I'll wake up once in a while and your mind's going so fast on all that has to be done. I'll find myself sometimes getting up at 4 a.m. and just getting on my computer. Yeah. But most of the time I sleep pretty well. But what's on my mind is how we're going to bring this thing back. I was just on a call earlier today with a lot of people around the world, and it's clear to me that unless we have the same protocols, whether it's in Japan, whether it's in Germany, the Middle East, Asia, South America, unless we have the same travel protocols, we can't get this thing going again. I don't know what I have to do if I get on a plane and end up in Germany. I don't know if it's different when I go to Japan. I don't know if it's different when I go to South Dakota versus Texas. And I think that's the thing we've got to do is get a common set of understanding of how you travel, how you meet again, which isn't very apparent right now.
Very good point. And my last question, Roger, because I know that you're in high demand as always, but even more now. When we are meeting next time, or when we are meeting in a year, let's say, with a bottle of champagne, what will we be celebrating?
We will be celebrating the fact that 2020 is a distant memory and that 2021 is something exciting, and 2022. I hear so many people, Eric, that are predicting the industry won't come back till 2024. I'm quite an optimist. I think that it's going to come back faster than anyone thinks once it starts coming back, once corporate travel policies change, once we get international. I think it's going to snap back much faster. I recall after September 11th, they said no one would ever get on an international flight again. After the Great Recession, they said 30% of all hotels will be closed forever. And both those incidents were followed by 10 of the best years ever. And I think we're in for that same kind of thing. And this thing's going to come back much more quickly. It's not going to come back in October of 2020, but watch it come back fairly fast, 2021, back in full board 2022.
I fully agree with that. Thank you so much, Roger, for your time. Always a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you soon, face to face.
Anytime. That's most important, face to face. Thank you, Eric. And thanks everybody that's part of our industry. You do such a great job.
And thank you for everything you are doing. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Roger, for taking the time to speak with me today. it's fascinating what you're doing, and also to be able to speak with you and have a little bit of this insight of what's going on the Hill regarding our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to join us on the Facebook group, www.evenbusinessformula.com/group, where we're sharing information training for our industry. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.